Isabella adjusted the lace strap of her dress. The light green silk felt pleasantly cool against her skin, but the nervous tension inside burned like fire. Subscribe to my channel and continue to enjoy the rest of the video. Have a good time. The wedding of Carmen, her husband Diego's sister, buzzed like a stirred beehive. The lavish restaurant, drenched in flowers and lights, felt like a stage set from another life, a life Isabella was somehow part of, yet remained behind the scenes. She and Diego were an ordinary couple, a modest apartment in a quiet neighborhood, a mortgage. Isabella juggled 2 jobs to make ends meet. Diego worked as a manager at a small firm. His salary was steady but offered little room for growth. Isabella spun like a hamster on a wheel, accountant by day, math tutor for high schoolers by night. Every penny was accounted for, every purchase a calculated decision, especially now, with her father needing expensive treatment. Isabella still remembered how her heart sank when the doctor delivered the verdict. He needed surgery, and soon. The cost was staggering, but Isabella vowed to find a way. She denied herself everything. No new dresses, no impromptu coffee with friends, no small joys. Every cent went into savings for her father's treatment. Diego knew about the situation, offered sympathy, nodded along, but his support never went beyond words. "We can't spend on ourselves, Isa," he'd often say, looking at her tired face. "Now's not the time." And Isabella listened. She grew used to it, used to constant frugality, to the guilt over every extra expense. She barely noticed how Diego sometimes indulged in things they couldn't afford: new gadgets, expensive fishing gear for trips with friends, branded clothes. "It's necessary for work," he'd brush off when Isabella timidly objected. Carmen's wedding was yet another strain on their finances. Isabella bought her dress on sale, chose the plainest shoes to avoid attention. The goal was to look decent and not spoil the celebration. Diego insisted on an extravagant gift. "We can't embarrass ourselves in front of my family," he declared firmly. Isabella sighed and agreed. She knew Diego's family's opinion was sacred to him. Now, sitting at a table laden with exquisite appetizers and fine liquor, Isabella felt like an outsider at this festival of life. She watched the guests' joyful faces, listened to the loud music, and forced smiles in response to congratulations. Diego sat beside her, content and relaxed, drinking heavily and laughing loudly as he shared stories with his relatives. Isabella felt irritation rising. She wanted to stand and leave, to escape this artificial glamour and return to their small, predictable apartment where everything made sense. Then the gift-giving began. The newlyweds accepted envelopes and boxes with grateful smiles. When it was Diego's turn, he stood, cleared his throat, and took the microphone. "Dear Carmen and Javier," he said solemnly, "I want to wholeheartedly congratulate you on this wonderful day. I wish you love, happiness, and prosperity." He continued, "From myself and Isabella, I'd like to give you a small gift that I hope will help in your new family life." With that, Diego pulled an envelope from his jacket pocket and handed it to Carmen. She accepted it with a delighted squeal. "There's 500,000 pesos here," Diego announced to the guests' applause. "Start your new life with this." Isabella froze. 50,000 pesos. Where did it come from? Her blood ran cold. Fragments of conversations, shared plans, promises to save for her father's treatment flashed through her mind. A chilling void grew in her chest. Diego's words, like thunder on a clear day, still rang in her ears. 500,000 pesos. From himself, personally. Her fingers clutched the phone in her purse. The banking app mercilessly confirmed her worst fears. The balance of their joint account had plummeted. The money she'd saved, denying herself everything, the money meant to save her father's life, Diego had so casually gifted to the newlyweds. She stared at the jubilant couple, the guests' glowing faces, Diego's smug smile. Everything felt false, hypocritical. In that moment, a wave of fury mixed with despair surged within her. No, she wouldn't let him get away with this. She wouldn't let him keep playing the generous, loving husband while her father faded and she broke herself with 2 jobs. A plan formed in her mind, risky, reckless, but the only right one. She knew her actions would have unpredictable consequences, but she could no longer stay silent. While Diego basked in congratulations, Isabella approached the host. She politely asked for the microphone, explaining she wanted to say a few words to the newlyweds. Flattered, the host handed it over. Isabella stepped to the center of the room. Dozens of eyes turned to her. Diego raised an eyebrow, a mix of confusion and mild irritation in his gaze. He clearly hadn't expected her to take initiative. Isabella took a deep breath, striving for calm. She felt everything trembling inside but appeared composed. "Dear Carmen and Javier," she began evenly, "I wholeheartedly congratulate you on this beautiful day. I wish you love, happiness, and many years together." The room erupted in approving cheers. Diego flashed a satisfied smile, likely assuming she'd offer a few trite words of congratulations. "I want to thank you, Diego," Isabella continued, turning to her husband, "for your generous gift. It's truly touching." A faint note of sarcasm crept into her voice. Diego frowned slightly but said nothing. Isabella paused, scanning the room. She saw the guests' curious faces, her mother-in-law's tense expression, Carmen's puzzled look. "You know," she said, "I only learned about this gift today, along with everyone else." The room fell silent. Guests stopped whispering, hanging on her every word. "The thing is," she went on, "this money isn't entirely Diego's, or rather, not his alone. It's our shared savings, money we saved together, sacrificing so much, money I earned, working 2 jobs to support my family and to give my father a chance at the treatment he needs." Pain seeped into Isabella's voice. She could no longer hold back her emotions. "Diego always said we couldn't spend on ourselves," she continued. "He reproached me for every cent I spent on myself, yet he so generously disposed of our shared money." Isabella looked straight into Diego's eyes. Horror flickered in his gaze. He knew what was coming. "Thank you, Diego," she concluded. "I truly appreciate this surprise." A dead silence fell. No one knew what to say. Guests lowered their eyes, feeling awkward and confused. Carmen, standing beside her groom, paled. Diego's mother gasped sharply. Diego stood as if struck by lightning, unable to speak. His face flushed with anger and shame. Isabella turned from Diego and addressed the guests. "I'm sorry," she said, "for ruining your celebration, but I can't stay silent anymore." Carmen tried to speak, to defend her brother, but Isabella stopped her gently but firmly. "I don't blame you, Carmen. You didn't know." There was no anger in her voice, only exhaustion and a kind of universal understanding. Carmen seemed to sense it. Her eyes filled with tears, and she sank into a chair. At that moment, Diego's mother, Teresa, intervened. She'd always disapproved of Isabella, deeming her unworthy of her splendid son. Her face now twisted with rage. "How dare you, Isabella? cause such a scene at your husband's sister's wedding? Couldn't you wait? Why shame the whole family?" Isabella faced her, fearless. "Teresa, I've been silent too long. I've endured humiliation, reproaches, constant penny pinching so Diego could seem generous at my expense. But the money for my father's health is a line I won't let anyone cross. And yes, better now than living a lie." Diego stood thunderstruck, his face burning, fists clenched. He tried to speak, but only a hoarse rasp escaped. You? Words stuck in his throat like clumps of mud. Guests began whispering. Some looked away, others watched the drama unfold with curiosity. The festive atmosphere vanished, leaving a thick, sticky silence tinged with discomfort and judgment. Carmen's closest friends were the first to leave. Those who knew Isabella and Diego well enough understood there was more behind this gift. They approached the newlyweds, murmured something quietly, and slipped out. Others followed, uneasy and unwilling to be part of the scandal. The wedding banquet turned into a hasty retreat. One friend, Elena, approached Isabella timidly and offered a handkerchief. "Isa, stay strong. You did the right thing." Her eyes held sympathy and support. Isabella nodded gratefully, accepting the handkerchief. Tears rolled down her cheeks, not from hurt or self-pity, but from the realization that it was over, that the life she'd fought so hard to build had crumbled in an instant. Teresa didn't relent. "You've ruined my son's life, you ungrateful woman," she spat, trying to wound Isabella, but her words no longer stung. Isabella felt detached, observing the scene from afar. She saw Teresa's anger, Carmen's confusion, Diego's helplessness, and realized these people were never her family. Diego finally snapped. He stepped toward Isabella, his face contorted with rage. "You'll regret this. I promise you." Isabella met his gaze with disdain. "You've already made me regret, Diego. You stole my hope. You betrayed me. But I won't let you control my life anymore." She turned and walked toward the exit, not looking back. She felt the weight of judgmental, curious, and pitying stares, but didn't care. She was done meeting others' expectations. Outside the restaurant, the cool night air hit her. She inhaled deeply, her lungs filling with oxygen, her soul with freedom. She left the wedding without goodbyes, to Diego's family, to the guests. She was saying farewell to her old life. Isabella called a taxi and gave her apartment's address. On the ride, she stared out the window at the city's flickering lights. Her mind was chaos, her heart empty. But deep inside, a spark of hope flickered. Hope for a new life of freedom and independence. She knew challenges lay ahead. Divorce, financial struggles, caring for her father. But she was ready. She had the strength to face whatever fate threw at her. She had herself, and that was enough. At home, Isabella pulled an old box of photos from the closet. She flipped through them, recalling happier times. A child fishing with her father, a student laughing with friends in a park, early days with Diego, full of hope and love. She paused at a photo of them by the sea, smiling, embracing, seemingly happy. But Isabella knew it was an illusion, that behind those smiles lay lies, deceit, and betrayal. She tossed the photo aside and closed the box. No point dwelling on the past. It was time to move forward. She opened her laptop and visited a legal consultation website. She needed a good lawyer to handle the divorce and protect her rights. Then she called her mother. "Mom, hi, I'm okay. I just wanted to say I'm divorcing Diego." Silence hung on the line. Then her mother asked softly, "What happened, Isa?" Isabella recounted everything: the gift, the money, the betrayal, calmly, without hysterics or blame, just facts. Her mother listened, sighing occasionally. At the end, she said, "Sweetheart, I always knew he wasn't right for you, but I didn't want to interfere. I thought you were happy. If this is your decision, it's the right one. I'm here for you. You can count on me." Her mother's words gave Isabella strength. She felt less alone, supported, and that mattered most. She ended the call and closed her laptop. She needed rest to gather her strength. Tomorrow would be tough, but she was ready. The next morning, Isabella woke to a strange emptiness. Her mind was clear, resolute, free of yesterday's chaos. The previous evening felt like a nightmare, but reality returned with every second. She felt as if she'd shed a crushing weight she'd carried for years. Before coffee, she checked her banking app. Her heart raced as she saw the remaining balance, money Diego hadn't touched. Without hesitation, she transferred it to her mother. Let this at least do some good, she thought, and let Dad get the best treatment. She called a legal consultation she'd found online. The voice on the line was calm, professional. Isabella outlined her situation, keeping emotions in check. The lawyer listened, asked clarifying questions, and scheduled a meeting for the next day. The hardest step came next: filing for divorce. Isabella stared at her phone before dialing Diego's number. The rings dragged on painfully. "What do you want?" his angry voice snapped. "I'm filing for divorce," she replied calmly. "You'll regret this," he growled. "You'll be left with nothing." "I'm already left with nothing, Diego. You made sure of that," she said, steady. "I just wanted you to hear it from me." She hung up before he could respond. With trembling fingers, she visited the district court's website and began filling out the divorce application. Each word was hard, but each click made her stronger. Next, she closed the joint savings account she and Diego had opened for emergencies, an emergency that arrived sooner than expected. At the bank, the staff greeted her with sympathy. A clerk who recognized her quietly asked if she was okay. Isabella nodded, fighting tears. The paperwork took time, but when it was done, she left the bank feeling she'd closed another door to the past. With the remaining money, Isabella decided to spend on herself. For the first time in years, she ignored frugality. She bought a light, airy dress, unlike her usual practical clothes, then spent ages in a shoe store, seeking something special to symbolize her new life. She chose elegant leather heels, comfortable, beautiful. She pictured herself walking in them toward new paths, new possibilities. The next day, Isabella met the lawyer. The woman listened attentively, reviewed documents, and offered valuable advice. She assured Isabella she had a strong case for a fair divorce and property division. Afterward, Isabella booked a therapist. She knew she needed help to process the stress and rebuild her self-worth. The first session went well. The therapist was empathetic, helping Isabella name her emotions, release the past, and plan her future. Regular sessions followed, and with each, Isabella felt better, learning to forgive herself, trust herself, and believe she deserved happiness and love. Isabella threw herself into work, avoiding thoughts of the divorce, Diego, or Carmen's wedding. She focused on doing her job well. Her colleagues were supportive, seeing her struggle and offering help. One evening, returning from a painting class, her mother called. Isa, sweetheart, how are you? Her worried voice asked. I'm okay, Mom, Isabella replied, hiding her emotions. How's Dad? He's a bit better, her mother said. Thanks to your money and our savings, we've paid for treatment at a good clinic. Thank you, sweetheart. A lump rose in Isabella's throat. She was silent, unsure what to say. Mom, I love you, she finally said. I'll do everything to make you happy. We love you too, Isa, her mother replied. We're so proud of you. You're strong and brave. Everything will be okay. Those words fueled Isabella's resolve. She wasn't alone. She had a loving, supportive family. She was a strong, independent woman, capable of overcoming anything. The divorce was long and ugly. Diego fought to keep her, tried to intimidate and humiliate her, to force her back. But Isabella stood firm. She knew she was right and would eventually find justice. Months later, the divorce was finalized. Isabella received her share of the property and began anew. She rented a cozy apartment in a quiet neighborhood, furnishing it with taste and warmth. Isabella learned to cherish life's moments, sunny days, fragrant coffee, good books, kind company. She realized happiness wasn't something to chase but to create. Carmen's wedding ended her marriage to Diego, but began her freedom. She no longer feared the future. She faced it with hope and optimism, knowing exciting, wonderful things awaited. Isabella believed in herself, her strength, her destiny, and knew she would find happiness.